Hello and welcome to the program. Thank you very much for joining us. Now, the PDP is a party in trouble. Trouble because of what happened in the last general election. As we speak today, the party, of course, is still in power until May 29th when the new government will come in. That's when Buhari would be sworn in as the president, and then you'd have the APC come in effectively. But fact is, the party is no longer the ruling party of this country. It did not do well in the governorship elections. Of course, it lost the presidential election. And what the party is trying to do now is trying to find out why it lost. As a matter of fact, the party has set up a committee to probe why it did very badly in the 2015 general elections. Now, take a listen to the party national secretary.
Reference of this committee are as follows. 1. To identify the remote and immediate causes of the relatively poor performance of the PDP in the 2015 general elections. 2. To trace the origin and process of the seeming decline of the party in its electoral performance. 3. To take a critical look at the preparations and build-up of the PDP to the general elections and determine its adequacies and lapses. 4. To review and determine the adequacy of the structures for the 2015 general elections and how those structures actually functioned. 5. To ascertain the degree of anti-party activities, compromises, and outright sabotage that may have contributed to the misfortunes of our party at these elections. 6. To look at the funding of the elections to determine whether or not the funds meant for the campaigns were adequate and whether disbursements were properly done. 7. To identify different groups in the party who are to play critical roles before and during the elections and determine their effectiveness or otherwise. 8. To determine any other matter that may be considered necessary and in the interest of the party. And finally, they are to propose a roadmap for the party to recover its past glory and definitely win the general elections in 2019.
The worst tragedy that could befall the PDP is not to have lost 2015 presidential election or our majority status in the National Assembly or some PDP-controlled states to the opposition. All through human history, even the greatest and strongest empires have suffered one setback or the other at certain points in their existence. Instead, the greatest tragedy will be our failure to draw on the lessons embedded in the outcome of the elections. The seeming reversal of our future fortune is an opportunity to reassess and reinvent our party to retake its rightful place in the Nigerian polity for a much longer time. But we must first understand our immediate past to be able to chart our future. I believe this underscores the essence of this committee, which we have been called to serve on. Indeed, unless a man knows where the rain started beating him, he will never know where it stopped. Members of the committee, therefore, count it an honor to be called upon to pilot this voyage of soul-searching and reinvention. We will assure you all that we will carry out this assignment to the best of our ability and without fear or favor. We earnestly request members of our party to avail the committee all necessary information in line with the terms of reference earlier mentioned. We will ensure that all shares of opinion are heard. This is the only sure way to get to the root of the matter and achieve the best result.
Well, let me just quickly add that the Deputy Senate President is actually the chairperson of that committee. The committee set up by the PDP to probe why it was defeated in the last general election. That is why it did very badly, because the PDP, of course, we know won some states in the country and, of course, would have a number of governors, about 16 of them. But, of course, the PDP, by its standard, the last election was a very, very bad performance. And now being joined on the program by the State Secretary of the PDP here in Lagos, Mr. Wahab Owokoniran, and of course we also have Nelson Ekojimi, who is a political analyst and of course a civil society leader. Let me start with you. You are the state secretary of the PDP, so you should know better. Why do you think the PDP did badly in the 2015 general election?
Well, we did badly for many reasons. One, because of the lack of internal democracy and also lack of discipline within the party. And as a matter of fact, from the point of reference the secretary read a while ago, some people within the party to sabotage the party in a way, most especially those who claim to be new PDP. You know, they might not show their face, but internally in their mind they know they are new PDP and they still remain in the real PDP, and they wreak some havoc. So a combination of many things affected our chances at the last.
Nelson, would you say that's a fair assessment?
Well, I think it's not.
I mean, coming from a PDP man, anyway.
Yeah, I think it's not too bad, but I think it's good that the party has realized the need to, do an introspection of why it performed the way it did, unlike what's obtained before now, where it has been the blame game. They've been blaming each other, different factions have been blaming themselves within the party. But by and large, I think it behoves on them to be honest enough to realize that where they can only get the true picture of the situation of things is if they are sincere with themselves. Because if you look at the standard of living of the Nigerian in the last 4 years under the PDP administration, it has gone from bad to terribly worse. We have seen a situation whereby, despite all the resources that has been pumped into the power sector, today, a government that came into office and about 2010, under the late President Yar'Adua, told us that they were going to generate, by December 2010, that they were going to generate 10,000 megawatts. Today, we have just about 2,800. Today, you have a situation whereby the level of insecurity in Nigeria is unparalleled. Today, the level of economic deprivation of the Nigerian people is it cannot be imagined. Today, under the same government, you have states in Nigeria who are unable to pay workers' salary for over 5 months. Today, you have a government in power that tells you, unlike what the Constitution explicitly stated and the African value, that the head of that government comes on air and tells the whole world that stealing is not corruption. A lot of factors are responsible for that.
And I have a problem because you talked about the terms of reference. Is it not the case that the PDP is actually not looking at the real reason? It's not really doing its job to find out the real reason why it lost the election. Because you take a look at the reference, it appears the PDP is saying, look, we could have won this election, that the people like us, we're doing very well. The PDP is actually not looking at its performance in office. I mean, some of the issues he talked about, that the people were actually fed up with the PDP.
Well,
No, I'm just asking because for you, I mean, you look at what the terms of reference now given by.
I am going to respond. Give me the opportunity to handle. Yeah, you see, people could see things from a different perspective.
Quite right.
As far as I know, Jonathan did very well in terms of achievements. Yes, there are some certain areas that is lacking, like the electricity you said. He promised he couldn't make it. I am very, very sure that this incoming administration will not be able to solve the power problems too. Mark my word.
But we pray it does.
I pray it does. Not only that, the corruption you are talking of was not the making of Jonathan. Corruption has become endemic in our system. And I'm very sure that Buhari too can only try. I'm not sure whether he could be able to solve the corruption problem in Nigeria, making true. The third one is the insecurity of the country. I pray to God Almighty to help him to be able to solve the insecurity problem. Most of these problems you are attributing to Jonathan and PDP is a common and general problem. Not only even in Nigeria, it's a global thing.
Because the PDP has been in power in Nigeria for the past 16 years.
The economy is going down. As it is now, the barrel of oil is being sold for 60 naira. The unemployment rate is so much. I want to see the miracle General Buhari will be able to perform in terms of turning the economy around, in view of the fact that the dollar, the oil prices is going down, in view of the fact that there's
about $67 now.
In fact, of that the unemployment rate is so high. We have about 80% unemployment among the youth. How is going to turn that around? I want to see.
And some people would say your party was responsible for that unemployment rate. If you have 80% unemployment rate and your party has been in power for 16 good years, then your party created the problem, and that's the reason the people decided to vote out your party. Now, the reason I'm asking this question is, wouldn't the party, the PDP, be doing itself a disservice, and that whether you like it or not, it just might not be able to deal with this issue? It might not be able to find out why it lost that election if it's basically looking at anti-party activities, sabotage, and people
let me create another. Let me give you another perspective. The problem that the PDP had has to do with the zoning of the presidency. If Jonathan did not run and would have put in a northern candidate,
I think the PDP would have won.
Certainly. Look at the figures itself. Look at how the result came. Look at the performance of PDP in the north. It was the northern agenda. You see conspiracy among the northerners across the two party lines. Let's give you an example. If we are putting somebody like Lamido of Jigawa, do you think the result will be the same?
No, because anyway, I'm going to come to you.
Different thing entirely.
I'm going to come to you. Let me ask you, Nelson, to react to what he's saying here. I mean, do you think that the PDP actually lost the election just because of the northern conspiracy that he talked about? That if the PDP had fielded a candidate from the north, it would have won the election?
I'm very, very uncomfortable, and I must express my reservation about that statement about northern agenda, because I know very well that it is claimed severally that the PDP is a national party. And I'm sure that party has a lot of northerners within it.
Quite a lot.
So I don't think it is fair for us to assume that a section of the country will gang up against a party that...
That was exactly what happened.
But the truth of the matter is that the PDP lost the election because of its woeful performance in office. The people were fed up. You made mention of some issues now. And one would expect, when Mr. President assumed the reins of power on May 29, 2011, he assumed the reins of power to better the lot of the Nigerian people.
Which you did.
Those problems were existing. Nobody is ascribing the genesis of those problems to the president. But when you take charge of an office, it behoves on you to put in efforts to make sure you improve the situation of things, rather than what we witnessed throughout the 4 years. What we witnessed throughout the 4 years of President Goodluck Jonathan that will be terminating on May 29, 2015, it was a government of blame game, was a government of buck passing. Electricity, the government will tell you it is vandals. Energy, petroleum products, the government will tell you it is a cabal. Today, as we are sitting here, all over the country, the government has made a directive that fuel, PMS, petrol, must be sold at the pumps for 87 naira per litre. As we are sitting down here, a litre of petrol is sold in filling stations and on the roads in virtually all cities in Nigeria. Why we have a sitting government at over 200 naira, and the government does not see that as a violation of its of the laws of the land, as an affront on its sovereignty as being in power, on the sovereignty of the Nigerian state. For me, that is an irresponsible government, because you expect that the government has sworn oath to uphold the constitution, and any violation of that constitution by no matter who should be, should be met with the full wrath of the law.
I get your point, but let me come back to you, Mr. Okonora. Yeah. There's a question I want to ask you, just following up on what you said about, Jonathan losing this election as a result of a northern conspiracy. Yeah. In 2011, Jonathan won the election, and of course he ran against a northern candidate at the time. Buhari, of course, he ran against him. But Jonathan won the election clear, fair and square. I mean, Buhari, for instance, was able to just poll 12 million votes. Jonathan got about 24 million votes. So what was different this time? I mean, both candidates, the same candidates who ran in 2014, in 2011, ran in 2014. So what changed the game? Why didn't the North conspire in 2011 to give it to Buhari? Why did the North have to wait till this period to conspire to give it to him?
The situation then was quite different from the situation we are having now.
What was the situation?
The situation then was Yar'Adua died. The man finished Yar'Adua's tenure, and people, Nigerian citizens, felt that he should be given a chance.
Even when we know the sentiments are gone.
They said at least he should be given a chance, which they did. And somewhere along the line, we learned that there was a gentleman agreement. Some people say he signed an agreement that he was only going to use one term. Possibly, maybe he violated that agreement. I did not know, and he never held up to it. So maybe some of those people who brokered it felt that this man has violated the gentleman agreement. So because of that, we are going to work against his interest. And that was exactly what happened. If you look at the results generally, you will discover that 90% of the northern states voted Buhari. It's only in the south.
But it had always been that the pattern.
No, it has not always been the pattern.
But go on.
In 2011, North Central, they voted.
And that's
wait, let me finish. Go on. Yeah. In 2011, the North Central zone, they voted mainly Jonathan. This time around, they did not.
And the question is why?
That's I've just told you.
No,
that is the northern conspiracy. Because they felt that it's now their turn to produce the presidency, and Jonathan is a southerner, so he needs to yield to a northern candidate.
No, but hold on.
That was just basic.
Is that not a simplistic way to look at it? Are you saying that everybody everywhere in this country was comfortable and satisfied with the performance of Jonathan?
No, that is not what I am saying.
That the majority of Nigerians were satisfied?
That is not what I am saying. What I am saying is that globally, there are problems with so many countries' economy. Nigerian economy, too, have its own share of the challenges. I am not saying Jonathan did perfectly well in terms of accomplishment. That is not what I'm saying. But if you look at the way our people have voted in the past and the way they voted in this particular election, and if you see what built up to it, you could have seen clearly that the country was polarized. You have the north and you have the south. Even as it is now, by the time they swear this man in, those southerners who even supported the northern agenda will realize that they have made a very big mistake politically. They will realize that they have committed a political blunder.
How?
Because it will become very clear that those people who are coming into power have their own Indian northern agenda, which they are going to play out and see that the way things are going. Let's say when May 29 comes and the president is sworn in, the Senate president possibly might end up to be a northerner. The speaker might end up being a northerner. You will see. At the end of the day, out of the 5 topmost position in the nation, will have ended in the hands of let me finish. Ended in the hands of the northerner.
What is the situation?
Whereas the southerner can only be proud of probably the vice president, which is like and
whether you like it or not.
It will be very unfortunate. It was at that time.
Whether you like it or not. It was at that time that we will now realize. It is that time we now realize that some people have committed political blunder. Let me bring you in here. Let me bring you in here. Let's not also forget that as we speak today, the Senate President is a northerner. The Speaker of the House of Representatives is a northerner.
We knew what led to that. We knew what led to that.
The truth of the matter is that I wouldn't subscribe to his line of argument, because if I were to buy into it, which I will never, it means for the last 4 years that President Goodluck Jonathan has been pursuing a southern agenda. Because one of the reasons why President Goodluck Jonathan lost, why a lot of Nigerians were aggrieved against his government, was because this was one government in our political history that embarked on a policy of dividing Nigerians along ethnic and religious lines. This was the only president in our political history who was going around with only Christian religious leaders as if the country is populated by only Christians. This was the only president in our political history who will come on air and tell the whole world that what is sustaining his government is the prayers of the Christians, as if the Muslims, the non-religious adherents, are not praying for us to have a peaceful, and progressive country. I'm disappointed that somebody can come on air and still be adducing reasons that we all know is a farce. Because the truth of the matter is that unless the PDP is real, I said it earlier, unless they are sincere about this matter, that the reason why they lost was because people were fed up with the misgovernance of the country under Goodluck Jonathan. Nothing more, nothing less. Whoever comes into office on May 29, we are determined as the people of Nigeria to give him all the necessary support by playing our part to make sure he succeeds. The same level, don't forget, in 2011, we all came out and voted for President Goodluck Jonathan. But what happened in 2015? People were fed up that we have never seen this type of management of our economy, in which money will be missing from the national coffers and the president will overlook it.
So it's not a question of the president losing this election because, as he said, there was a northern conspiracy.
At all. It was the Nigerian people's agenda that they don't want this man again.
We're going to take a short break now. When we come back, I want to find out from you what you think, how difficult you think it will be for the PDP to get its acts together, because it would be nice to get the PDP to function as, you know, a very strong opposition party, because you don't want to create the kind of situation where you're leaving a situation where one party dominates and then you're moving into another situation where another party also dominates. So it changes nothing at all. So we'll take a short break, and when we come back, we'll continue the discussion. Every day, every hour, and every minute, news break in Nigeria. Things happen so fast, it's most times difficult to track and comprehend them. But that's what we do right here on DEJI360. 2015, would you want to come back again?
It's like asking Jesus Christ if he knew he was going to die, will you want to come back as the savior of the world again?
We do not just help you track the stories, we break them down, explore all the angles, analyze the issues so that you can fully comprehend the stories and use them to make the right decisions.